Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte. This is my Tech Guy podcast. This show originally aired on the Premier Networks on Saturday, June 22nd, 2019. This is episode 1602. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast is brought to you by Simply Safe. Simply Safe protects your whole home with 24/7 monitoring for just a fraction of the cost. Visit simplysafe.com/twit for free shipping and a 60-day risk-free trial. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy. Yes, it's time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, your smartphones, your smart watches, all that jazz, all the technical doodads and gimcrack and thingamajiggies that are changing our lives. 8888 Ask Leo is my phone number if you want to talk tech, whether to make a suggestion, ask a question, make a comment. If it's about technology, we talk about it here. 888-827-5536. It's a conversation. If you're an oldster, you'll remember user groups. I guess they're still around. It's a user group of the airwaves. Because you know what? We users have to help each other. Because the companies sure aren't doing anything about it. So if I seem a little distracted, it's because the game of the century came out on Thursday. And I'm a little distracted. Harry Potter, Wizards Unite. Maybe you remember 3 years ago, July 2016. I'll never forget it. When a little thing called Pokemon Go came out. And you saw roving bands of teenagers in the streets, not bent on mayhem, but bent on catching little pocket monsters. And you knew they were distracted because they'd be wandering into the traffic. They'd be going into people's backyards, all in search of pocket monsters. Well, the company that did that is a former Google company called Niantic. They actually are the people who did Google Maps. And so, as a result, they're kind of interested in maps. They also got interested in another technology that's very popular these days called augmented reality, where you take the real world and you lay on top of it things like little pocket monsters and stuff. And so they combined all those two things, location and augmented reality, and came up with this. Actually, the first game they came up with was something called Ingress, where it was cool because you had to walk to play it. You couldn't just sit on your duff in your living room and play the game on a TV set. You had to get outside and walk around from place to place. Ingress was complicated. I played it for a little bit. It was too complicated, but it was about kind of establishing territory and connecting points of interest, and it was just all sorts of things. But they used that Ingress and all the players, and there are still people who play it religiously, to map points of interest in every community, not just in the U.S., but all over the world, everywhere. Wow. And then, a couple of years later, they came out with this Pokemon Go. And you'd be wandering around town, and you'd notice that, the post office was a Poke Stop, and the local diner was a Poke Gym, and there were Pokemon littered all around, and you could capture them, and it was a fun game, and you had to walk. And in fact, I can't remember, but the last time I saw it was more than 1 billion miles walked by Pokemon Go players. I mean, imagine the level of fitness and so forth. I mean, really, I think a great thing. But we'd heard rumors even a couple of years ago. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I get it wrong? It wasn't 1 billion. As of in the first 6 months of Pokemon Go, 8.7 billion kilometers. Slightly more than 4.5 billion miles in the first 6 months. So now, 3 years later, it's probably 100 billion miles. I don't know what it is. Well, that's bad math, but, it's a lot. It's billions and billions of miles walked. We knew, though, that what they were doing is going to license this to other people. So there was a Jurassic Park game. Didn't really go over too great. But then there was this game. Then they said, we're going to do a game. We're going to license the assets of Harry Potter. Harry Potter, the boy wizard. You're a wizard, Harry. The boy wizard who went to Hogwarts, Some people have not heard of this. I pity you. Anyway, they licensed that. Actually, it's the other way around. They gave Warner Brothers the technology, and Warner Brothers, which owns Harry Potter, wrote this. And they released it into New Zealand and Australia a couple of months ago, and people have just been going crazy about this. Well, guess what? On Thursday, the day before summer, the official start of summer on Friday, they released it to the U.S., the UK, and now they're releasing it around the world. So once again, roving bands of teenagers staring at their phones. If you see people staring at your phones kind of a little more than normal, that's what's going on. And what they're doing is they're trying to catch mystical creatures. They're trying to become adept wizards. They're doing magic, all sorts of crazy stuff. And it's really fun. And you're not going to see a lot of me, except wandering around. I almost was late today because I had to go to my greenhouses and tend the magical herbs that I was. I'm wondering because they're using the same landmarks. So there's lots of churches. It turns out churches were popular with Ingress players and then Pokemon Go players. But I wonder how churches are going to feel. Because I know some churches, not all, a few, think that Harry Potter's kind of satanic. It's witches and wizards and magic and stuff. And some churches actually burn the Harry Potter books. So I wonder how they're going to feel. I noticed the church near me, they didn't make it a fortress, which is one of the things you can be where you can battle. They made it a greenhouse. You can't. What's nothing wrong with being a greenhouse. There are inns scattered around, too, in which you are to go and dine. And there are other wizards, and you can play with your friends, and yes, a lot of walking. So anyway, I tell you this just as a word of warning. If I seem a little distracted, probably it's because, something creepy has popped up outside my window, and I have to catch it. Last week we talked a little bit about the fact that Facebook was going to announce their new cryptocurrency, Libra coin, and they did, and we have more details. And I think this may end up being one of the big stories of the year. Because, and by the way, immediately Congress says, we're investigating. India outlaws it. France outlaws it. And actually, if a bunch of governments hate it, I'm thinking maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this isn't such a bad thing. Who really hates it is banks. Banks have a monopoly on money, right? You need money, you go to the bank. Well, what if they didn't? And that's the whole idea. You've probably heard of Bitcoin and these other cryptocurrencies. These are currencies, much like American dollars. They're currencies based on mutual agreement. American dollars have a little bit more than that. They have the full faith and credit of the United States government behind them. But, other than that, these are identical. You believe it's worth something, it's worth something. If a donut shop will take it, then it counts. And that's what Facebook's been doing, is signing up other companies. Uber will take Libra coin when they come out later, actually be next year. MasterCard and PayPal are in. Of course they're in. They're going to no banks, but a lot of other companies. And Facebook's saying, look, you see, it's not just us. It's not just we could do the whole thing. They got enough money. They paid $22 billion for WhatsApp. They could spend $1 billion or $2 billion developing a cryptocurrency. They don't make money on the currency. Don't think that. They make money when you use the currency. So next year, you'll start to pay for things using Facebook Messenger and Facebook's other program, WhatsApp, and Facebook itself and Instagram with their coin, Libra coin. And it'll be global. It'll be around the world. And Facebook, just like MasterCard or PayPal, is also part of this. They make a little money when you do the transaction. They don't make money on issuing the coin. I think this is going to be very interesting. Governments are very upset. Congress has already said, we're having hearings. Well, they're serious when they're having hearings about something. So we shall watch with interest. Facebook, one of the concerns a lot of people had, I had it as well last week when we talked about this, is that Facebook would know everything about every transaction. Facebook says, no, we're going to make sure that that's not the case. We're going to make sure that's not the case, that that the transactions will be private. Interesting. We won't know anything about it. They don't need to. They're going to make money on the other stuff. And, of course, as one of our chatters, Dale, says in the chat room, with Facebook's fantastic record for security and privacy, what could possibly go wrong? 8888 Ask Leo. We'll talk about that. Hey, Heather Hamann, H-Bomb, is filling in for Kim Schaffer this week. So we'll go call Heather and say hi. She hasn't been here for a while. And we'll get to the phones in just a second. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number. When you hear me talk about stuff, I'll put links up in the show notes. TechGuyLabs.com. Hi-O Silver, with a hearty Hi-O Silver and a cloud of dust. The tech guy rides again. Big Pee-wee, our musical director, is messing with me now. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. I guess this is the new H-Bomb theme. Hello, Heather Hamann. How are you?
I'm good. It can only be because he's going off of Phone Ranger, Lone Ranger, right?
Oh, Phone Ranger, Lone Ranger.
That's what I'm guessing.
Oh,
and I even am
I get
galloping
it.
on my horse while I'm talking on the phone.
I get it. What are you sitting in one of those little bouncy seats they give kids? What are you sitting in?
Well, the ball that you turned us all onto.
I know.
Which I use also at my other job.
Do you?
Yeah.
Heather, since she left us, we stole Heather from Dr. Dean Dell, where she had worked for many years, and you probably remember her as Nurse Heather. But we didn't really give you a good moniker here. And now she's working big time in the afternoon drives or evenings now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
PM drive.
PM drive.
As money as you can get without getting up at 4 a.m.
Yeah. I hated the morning shift. I said, give me the afternoon shift, boss. That's the best shift. Because you still get a little bit of an audience. People are coming home.
Oh, it's a great audience.
But you don't have to entertain them because they really just want you to shut up. It's not like the morning crew where you got to be, hey.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
No.
But if you want to borrow my Vuvuzela,
Never.
when you're
would be when I want to do that.
if you want to borrow that anytime.
Well, if you have a toilet flushing sound,
No,
I hear that's big on morning shows
yeah,
still.
I know. But I hear you on the radio all the time now.
Oh, goody.
So that's awesome. You could borrow my sound effects
on the
machine.
sports station or the what?
I have a sound effects machine.
Wow.
The last guy left it here. I don't.
Who was that?
I don't know.
Who knows? He faded into obscurity.
So Heather is filling in for Kim, who's taking a beautiful summer weekend off. First weekend of summer.
Just today.
Okay, Saturday off. But so it's nice to see you again. I missed you.
See you guys.
I just figured now you're such a superstar. I didn't expect to ever see you again or even hear from you. I thought.
All right, you want the real story?
Yeah.
I was like, Kim, I miss everybody. Why don't you take a day off for crying out loud?
Aw. Oh, you're gonna make me cry. So you came in early. You're answering the phones. You got your apron on, so as not to mess up your fine clothes. Who should I talk to first?
Well, it's actually related to my other job. Directions in your car. Johnny in Atlanta is asking about,
what do you think?
Those things that help you reroute yourself around incidents.
What if every time I took a new caller, I played the floppy disk boot up sound? Would that be like a
drive everyone nuts?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what do you think? No? Not bad.
I'm going with no, but we could try it. Let's do it to Johnny in Atlanta. He's on line 3.
Thank you.
Here you come, Johnny.
Sorry, Johnny. Now you're confusing me. Line 3, huh?
Yeah.
I got to push this button. Okay. Hi, Johnny. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Thanks, Heather.
Hey, Leo. So I got the sound effect. I didn't hear it. So.
Yeah. No. I'll play it for you. Here's your sound effect. No, that's not.
Oh, fantastic.
That's not a good one. I'll find a good one for you. Oh, the Intel sound. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
What can I do for you, Johnny?
Hey, Leo, I told you before I asked my question, I told you about a month ago, and I told you I was going on a cruise to Cuba because I was asking you about Wi-Fi.
Oh man, did you get canceled? Did you get canceled?
No, listen to this. You're talking about luck.
You got the last boat.
We were the last ship in.
The last boat into town. Man.
We were.
I feel
it was amazing.
So many. You are very fortunate. So many people were scheduled for cruises to Cuba when they closed when President Trump shut the door. A lot of people we're going to Mexico instead.
Yeah,
so you are very fortunate. Was it a great trip?
It was an excellent trip, and I was on Empress of the Seas with
beautiful
the Caribbean.
How was that Voom for you? The Voom internet.
I didn't do Voom, but I'm doing another cruise in September on the Symphony of the Seas, and I'm definitely going to get Voom there because I wanted to see what it's like. Because you have sung its praises, and I want to make sure that I can rely on it.
I used it on the Anthem of the Seas a couple of years ago when they'd first come out, and I couldn't believe how fast it was. Because normally cruise ship internet is painful. I mean, it's almost as if they're trying to hurt you.
Like I said, I'm an IT consultant, so if I feel as strong about it as you do, I'm like, hey, am I working on the ship from sometimes?
Well, but also maybe you shouldn't work on the ship. Maybe you should just enjoy the vacation. There's something to be said for that as well.
So anyway, Cuba's amazing. So hopefully they'll open it up one day. So
I hope they reopen it. Yeah.
So my question to you is, I tried to call last week, but I was getting some bad reception. But anyway, I went to my dad's house for Father's Day. He lives in Alabama, so I take I-20 from Atlanta to Birmingham. And there is always major road work now going on I-20, whether you're going west or whether you're going east.
Yeah.
And so I've gotten used to Waze, right? So and I just purchased a 2019 Ford Ranger, so I have a lot of options available to me besides Waze. I have the Android app, I have the CarPlay, I have the Ford app that's got maps in it, and so I thought, well, I've used Waze. And, I thought, well, I'll let it decide. And it did take me off the highway once to get me around a major backup, and, it put me back on a little early, I thought, because I still got stuck in traffic. But I thought, well, it must know what it's doing because I didn't stay in that traffic very long, but I could have. So my question is that one of the best apps to use when you're looking to avoid major traffic like that?
So the least good one would be the one built into the car because those maps don't get updated very frequently. And I'm not sure with the latest Ford if they're always online and getting more information. Does a Ford have its own 3G or LTE connection?
Yes, I have it right now.
So they may be. I know some cars now will get map information from Google. What Google did is bought Waze, which was crowdsourced. So the map on Waze I'm not as crazy about. It's probably as accurate as can be. It's just not as pretty. It doesn't have satellite and so forth. And Google has slowly been incorporating the Waze traffic information, and they just recently even added rerouting, Waze-style rerouting. What it's missing is all the reporting stuff, although I think they're adding that too using Google Assistant. So I think my preference would be Google Maps or Waze, whichever you like better. I think both would work equally well. And trust Waze, you bet. I think Waze is remarkable. I don't turn it on unless I know I'm going to be in traffic.
But my question, a lot of interesting stuff comes up on your route, right? Like especially a stalled car on the show.
And Waze knows about all that.
Yeah, but my question is, how does it know about that? Because unless you're taking the time to say, hey, there's a stalled car.
That's how. So look when it's crowdsourced. So look when you're driving, you'll see all the other Waze drivers on the Waze map, right? Little bobbleheads on the Waze map. And I don't know what it's like Atlanta to Birmingham, but here in the Bay Area where it's probably the most dense, there's usually another few hundred people on my route. And a lot of people take the time to report. And Waze gives you ways to do it that are less dangerous. I don't recommend it. They've now, as I said, you can now do it with Google Assistant. So you can do it fully with voice if you want. And you'll say, hey, you-know-who, traffic alert, there's a stalled car. And I found it to be very accurate. They also, as you know, have the option to say that car wasn't really there. And then they aggregate all that information. I think,
right, and I usually try to reply to that. I tell it.
It's good if you have a co-pilot. Give the phone to the co-pilot.
Well, the nice thing is with the Android app, I brought up Waze on the Android app. On
Android Auto, yeah.
Android Auto, right? That's integrated into the Ford.
I love Android Auto. I think that's a really great way to go. I will not buy another car unless it has. Well, and most cars, when they do Android Auto, both have CarPlay and Android Auto. But unless it has that integration, because even if Ford's using LTE, the maps that you're getting on your phone are going to be the most up to date. Obviously, those get updated all the time.
Yeah, I felt I had a lot of choices this past week, and I thought I used the best one. And there was some major construction going back from Birmingham to Atlanta when I was driving to Birmingham that I noticed, and I kept dreading the drive back the next day. But Waze never wanted me to get off the interstate. And I thought, well, they must have completed it, And sure enough, I never got stuck in traffic. So I thought, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Waze is like Wikipedia. It's one of the real success stories of the internet, of crowd sourcing on the internet. It's really a remarkable tool. And as far as I can tell, it's gotten better, I guess. I mean, it's certainly as good as it ever was. It's not gotten worse. Sometimes crowdsourced stuff gets worse over time, like Twitter. But Waze is pretty good. So I don't use it all the time. Here's what I do. I'll use Google Maps for day-to-day stuff. But if we're planning a trip to the city where traffic can be bad, either Lisa will check Waze to get a second opinion, or we'll use Waze. I kind of prefer how Google Maps looks and the directions.
But you're saying Google Maps is starting to integrate?
Yeah, more and more. Yeah, so I thought when they bought Waze that maybe they'd just take it over, but they have been very careful about not doing that. But the reporting is now in there, especially with Assistant. All of the traffic information is, so you'll see colors. And I think that Google Maps now does the exact same rerouting as Waze. I'll have to check, but that was my understanding.
Yeah. And one other plug for the Ford, this was my first car with adaptive cruising.
Yeah.
I don't know how I've lived without that feature.
So I'm making a list of things I will not, because I'm gonna buy a new car in the next year. Will not do without. Those are two right there. You just named. Adaptive cruise control especially if you're in stop and go. It's a lifesaver. I don't need the autopilot. I don't need the Tesla autopilot, the lane change and lane keeping. That makes me nervous. But I definitely want adaptive cruise control.
I was totally amazed how, I told it to keep me 3 car lengths back, how you do in the settings. And it really stayed on track.
Nice.
I felt very comfortable. I felt very comfortable when the car slowed down quickly in front of me. Because I was nervous, it would just take over. You could just feel it take over.
I got to run. It's great to talk to you again, Johnny. Have a great day.
All right, thank you, Leo.
Take care. Bye-bye. Live from his studio in beautiful Southern California, the home theater geek, the hardest working man in television, Scott Wilkinson. If you call watching a lot of TV hard.
That's exactly right.
Hey, Scott. Scott is a contributor at Tech Hive, does our regular home theater reviews and commentary every week on the show. And last week we talked about the big TV shootout, the flat screen shootout.
Yep. My write-up, by the way, is up on Tech Hive now, so go
Scott
check
was
it out.
It's MC and one of the judges, which is pretty cool.
Well, I actually wasn't a judge.
Oh, you didn't get to judge? You just got to
I could have, but I chose not to. And Joel Silver, who's one of the premier video consultants in the industry, said to me, boy, you know what? I'm really glad I'm not a judge because they're so close.
Yeah.
They're so good and so close to each other. Choosing a winner is very hard.
Repeat the winner just so we know if you didn't hear it last week.
It was the Sony A9G. It's called the AG9 in Europe, but it's A9G in the U.S. OLED TV. And
all the OLEDs were very good, though, right?
Well, we had 2 OLEDs and 2 LCD TVs, LED illuminated LCD TVs.
Right.
And the OLEDs both won. The Sony won, but the LG OLED was within 5% of it, almost in every category.
Wow.
Certainly in most categories.
So 5%, I always think of 5% as being the margin of error. In other words, a difference of 5%, you probably won't notice it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what we felt too.
Yeah.
So, it's a really tough call there, but
you could say which is best. Just people should understand that you don't have, if there's other factors, if you like how the other ones look or whatever.
Right. Or the
price.
LG is less expensive, for example.
Right.
I'm
only saying that because I have a 4-year-old LG OLED, and I don't want you to.
Which probably still looks great.
It looks great. You know what? I bought the original Samsung curved screen OLED way back when it was very expensive.
Way back when, yeah.
And it still looks great. I love it still. So
you still have that TV, huh?
Yeah, it became our kind of our sitting room TV for when we want to get away, because we have a teenager, and so as kids get older, they start having parties in the house. So when we want to get away,
you go to the sitting.
We go to the sitting room and close the door, and hope the house isn't burned down while we're watching Westworld or whatever.
Right, exactly.
So,
OLED TVs are fantastic.
Oh, I agree.
They have great contrast. And it's not surprising to me that the Sony one and the LG was so close behind.
Yeah.
So close behind.
Yeah. Good.
So
good.
It was great, and I go into great detail about how they were calibrated and how they were judged and all that stuff in that article on Tech Hive. So do go check it out. And I do conclude that article, by the way, by saying you can't go wrong with either the Sony or the LG.
Good.
So that's pretty important.
So what else is up in your world?
Well, I attended the monthly session of SMPTE this week. SMPTE is the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers. And it was really interesting because it was a presentation by a new industry alliance called the Immersive Digital Experiences Alliance. Now, what they're talking about is immersive video. Here's the situation. We have immersive audio, right, with Dolby Atmos and DTSX. There are a variety of formats in audio where if you put speakers all around the room, you can get a very immersive audio experience where you hear planes coming from behind you and something else over to the side, and you can localize it and be within that space very effectively. But what are you looking at the same time? You're looking at a 2D image, a flat image in front of you. Now, we all know what happened to 3D, right? It came and it went.
Yeah.
It was just not very popular. And part of the reason for that was you had to wear those glasses.
Right.
And even AR or VR, where you put on the headset, it's only a simulation of 3D. It's really presenting two 2D images, one 2D image to each eye, separated by some number of inches. That is a simulation of 3D. How could we get a real, honest-to-goodness 3D holographic display? And the answer that this Alliance IDEA has is something called light fields. And what that is you have to capture a scene with a big array of cameras because light comes at you from all different directions. But from a TV or a screen, it comes at you from really only one direction. And that's part of the problem. But with a hologram, it comes at you from any direction. Like if you look at an object, light is bouncing off it and coming at you from a variety of directions. Light field technology does a much better job of capturing that fact that light is coming at you from all different directions. And basically, if you can capture that and then reproduce it in some way, it will look indistinguishable from looking at an actual 3D object in front of you in space. And people are working on that very, very hard. One of the presenters gave a great example of this. You remember Back to the Future 2, where he goes to the future, right?
Yeah.
And Marty McFly's walking around, and there's this shark that comes out at him from a billboard. You remember that?
Yeah.
That shot?
Yeah.
That could have been done with a light field projector, with a light field billboard, essentially.
Mm-hmm. How's it project? Is it projecting into your eyeballs?
No. It's just projecting light beams, light rays, actually they're called.
Do you have to have like clouds to smoke?
No. All you need is a big array of tiny little projectors that reproduce.
What's it bouncing off of?
It's not. It's just sending light rays out in different directions.
Yeah, but you're going to have to help me here. So I understand a projector and it hits a screen, it bounces off into your eyes.
Yep.
But if I'm looking at an empty space and you're projecting light into that empty space, what's making it go from the direction? So normally light travels in a straight line from the projector.
It does.
To wherever it's going. How does it? How is it being reflected into my eyes?
It's not. You're looking directly at the projector.
So the projector is projecting it onto my eyeballs. Correct.
That is correct. He also gave the example of something that.
So that's hard to do because
it is.
You have to. This is the problem. We've talked a lot about 3D and they never solved this, which was glassesless 3D.
Correct. And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. And the only way that anybody could think of it working is if it fired the light into your eyeballs, but would have to know where you were as you moved around.
No. Now, when you're looking at an object in space, does it know where you are? No, it doesn't. You can walk around it, and as you walk around it, the light that's reflecting off of it hits you differently because you're in a different position.
Right.
Similarly, if you were to be able to capture the light reflecting off that object with an array of cameras, and typically it's a 2D large array of many cameras, if you were able to capture all those light rays and then send them back out with some sort of, again, an array of projectors, and you could look at those light beams as they're coming out of the projector, it would look indistinguishable from the object itself.
But you'd have to have a projector that was projecting to a very wide angle.
Correct. And you'd need to have a large array of them, like a billboard, for example.
Ah, okay. So if you were looking at a billboard, yeah, that would make sense. The billboard's made up with just, instead of pixels, projectors.
Correct.
Oh, very interesting.
Very interesting.
I hope we haven't confused you all. Scott Wilkinson, TechHive.com, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Oh, my goodness. So that's why that makes sense. It's not a point projection. It has to be a projector that's as big as a TV, in effect. It has to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Now, and also, dig this. You would have to have, you know how we have 4K displays and 8K displays, and now we're talking about 8K displays. A light field projector like that would have to be something like 512K.
Yeah, because it has to have enough points to fill fill a 6 foot or whatever area,
and allow light beams to be projected in a wide variety of angles and directions.
I'm going to let you take over here. I cannot. I'm stuck because I can't. I got problems with my system. But
problems with your system.
And we got to solve your lip sync issue. I don't know what the hell we're going to do.
I want to get with somebody there. I know Alex is no longer there, and I'm sorry about that. But somebody there during the week. Can I get with somebody to try and solve this problem? Because I realize it's bad.
Yeah, it's really and
I mean, I restarted my computer and everything.
What are you using are you using you're using all the gear we sent you? Are you using the Focusrite to get into the computer? Is that what you're using, a Focusrite?
No.
What are you using? What's the USB
you mean
interface?
In terms of,
what's the USB interface? Is he using a Scarlett? What do we send him?
No, I've got an Onyx Blackjack for the mic and a Logitech C920 camera that are plugged directly into the USB.
Camera's not the issue. It's the Blackjack.
Okay.
We don't use that. We need to send him the Focusrite. Almost certainly it's the interface. The only reason I say that is you're the only one we have this problem with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it could be Skype, but I think it's the audio interface. Burke, I'm going to say it's the audio interface.
Okay, now you guys sent me this Blackjack.
We did?
Years and years ago.
Oh, okay.
Years ago, but it's
I don't even remember us using that.
Yeah, John Solanina sent it to me.
Yeah. So, would you have John send him, or you can send him whatever we use currently, which I think is the Focusrite. Yeah. I think that's the problem right there.
What problem are you having?
The preview buttons don't work. Did Alex leave you a checklist of how to do all of this? Okay, so it's always, for the last 3, since he left, it's never been quite right. So the preview isn't
right.
It's changing what says there, but it's not. And look, this has the lower third in the preview for some reason.
I think I know how to fix it.
Okay, yeah, if you could fix that.
Take control back.
Okay, take control back. You got a minute and a half. Go
Okay,
ahead, Scott.
thank
all
you.
yours.
Thank you very much. Beatmaster says Blade Runner 2049 had a similar thing. That's true. That's exactly true. Now, the one example that they gave me at this presentation that they gave to everybody that was clearly not possible was the hologram of Princess Leia saying, "Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope," with R2-D2 beaming a hologram onto a tabletop. That is not possible because that would require the system to be able to stop light rays, light photons.
You have to bend them into your eyes. That's why when you see holograms, it's into a cloud chamber or something. So there's something to refract the light.
Well, yes, but in the case of Star Wars, it's basically there wasn't any fog in the room.
Right.
Just,
so there's nothing to reflect onto.
Nothing to reflect on.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that is not possible.
Yeah. All right. We got to run. Thank you, Scott.
Okay. You want me to stick around?
Please.
Happy to.
Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Another day of life. The first weekend of summer. You have lots of reasons to celebrate. Tom, in Leland, North Carolina. Hello, Tom. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hi, Leo. You're
Hey,
the
Tom.
best.
Thank you for calling.
I got a question, though, that has sort of been puzzling me. I'm watching television on my normal cable provider, and I get this pixelation and program interruption, just little stuff. And I go, well, they may be having troubles. Okay, so I switch over. I have the ability to switch over to an antenna with the same program. Mm-hmm. And I see that they got the same problem. They got pixelation and interruption.
Even on the antenna.
Yeah. So I go, well, wait a minute. They got 2 different feeds, I believe, from the network. So I go, well, that's strange. So I'm watching another day. I'm watching in the office on YouTube TV.
Yeah.
My wife is watching the program from the satellite. I mean the cable provider, and she yells into me, "Hey, it's pixelating again really bad." And I'm watching the same program on YouTube TV, and it's not.
And it's not.
It's perfectly, yeah. So I go, okay.
That doesn't make any sense.
What is their feed? Yeah, what's their feed different?
So, what this is, of course, is the plague of digital, which is now everywhere. Even when you're watching an antenna, not only are you watching a digital signal now, but the signal even within the television station is digitized. And so, I see this all the time. News channels seem to have a bigger problem with this. A lot of times you'll see pixelation, you'll see hesitation, you'll see pause. And it could be a lot of places along the chain now because this digital goes all the way, right, from practically from the camera all the way to your television set. So it could be your internet bandwidth, it could be the box you're using, it could be your cable provider or internet provider, it could be, on all the way back down the chain. It's the same thing with the internet access. If you're getting a lot of buffering, this is very much like the calls we've been getting for years. I get a lot of buffering. Well, it's the same problem, right? This is digital. In fact, what you're seeing is effectively digital buffering. You're seeing the picture break up or pause because the packets aren't arriving at some point. The only question is where. It is. You brought up a really interesting point because YouTube, I'm going to assume, I don't really know how YouTube TV gets its signal, but I'm going to assume it gets it from, that's actually a really interesting question. It is Google. So Google could be doing something really weird, but it's coming from the TV source, right? So let's say, what is it, a local channel or a network? What are you watching?
Well, it's essentially a network feed.
Okay.
And that's where I seem to watch it in three different.
So I'm going to assume, I guess I could Google this. I'm really puzzled now. Let me Google where does YouTube TV get its feed. I would assume it does the same thing that everybody else is doing, which is, well, actually, I don't even know what everybody else is doing. They're not allowed to just pick it up off the air. They're probably getting a feed,
don't they?
Yeah, I would assume. So, for instance, this radio show has a very complicated chain as well. I'm speaking into an analog microphone in Northern California. It goes into a digital box from Telos called an Axios, which turns the analog sound into digital sound, which then gets fed down a phone line to Sherman Oaks, California, where Big Pee Wee's got a big mixing board there, and he's got now Big Pee Wee's sending it back to me. I think he's got the mixing board there, and then he sends it upstairs in the Sherman Oaks facility to what they call the NOC, the Network Operations Center. They beam it to a satellite dish. The satellite dish then beams it down to the local radio stations. There's several hundred of them. They pick it up from an uplink. And usually the uplink they don't own, because you don't see, most radio stations don't have big dish farms. There's usually a dish farm, and in every big city and every community there's going to be a dish farm. Look for it as you're driving down the highway, where there are a bunch of big dishes. Those are downloading it, and then they're sending it to the radio station via digital lines. Then the radio station puts it into their mixer, which then puts an analog feed into their transmitter, which then feeds it up to the tower, which feeds it into your radio. So it's complicated. YouTube TV, I would guess you're right that I don't know if they're downloading it from a satellite transponder. Since they show locals, it probably varies depending on what they're doing. If they're showing locals, they probably have a digital feed of some kind from the local station into their servers. And then if they're serving networks, so is it a big network? Is it like a cable channel that you're watching this happens to?
Well, yeah, it was actually, believe it or not, it was the Tony Awards.
Okay, so that was ABC, right? That was a big network.
Yeah, and that's okay. My wife's watching it from the cable provider.
So okay, I would think that you watching it, she's watching on. You're watching on cable. How are you watching it?
Well, no, I was watching it over YouTube TV.
You were watching YouTube TV. She was watching on cable.
And she got all the pixelation and breakup.
And you did not.
Well, I didn't see anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's surprising, because I would guess that ABC feed goes pretty much the same way to your cable company that it goes to your YouTube TV. So now I'm thinking it's the cable company that's screwing it up, not the original ABC source. Although, wait a minute, I watched the Tonys. Yeah, there was some garbling in the Tonys.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, and I was watching on my cable provider, so I don't know what the answer is. But you see the complexity of it is anywhere along the chain these things can happen.
Yeah, meanwhile, my wife is yelling at me because I'm always fooling around with stuff. And she goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You must have my good program." And I go, "Hey, I'm fine over here." Yeah,
my wife says the same thing to me. Stop it. She also says, "You can't die because I won't be able to know how to turn on the TV if you're not here."
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm the only one who knows the exact magical incantation with the 5 remotes so that everything will work.
But when they was working good with YouTube TV, I go, "Whoa, wait a minute."
So this is good. You're very astute to have noticed that. It does mean that the corruption, because that's what it is, it's digital corruption, is happening probably elsewhere than the satellite feed. Since you're watching a network feed, now maybe you just missed it, because I was watching on the cable. I'm on Comcast. Who's your cable provider?
It's a Spectrum.
So that's not in common, but they probably get it from the same satellite transponder. So maybe the satellite was having an issue. But then wait a minute, how's YouTube getting it? Well, YouTube, maybe, it's Google, right? Maybe Google says, and I could completely see this, you know what we'd like to do? We'd like to put fiber into the ABC production facility, and you just feed us via fiber. That's
right.
very likely, in fact, given that they're,
That's
Google.
right.
So maybe that is the difference. Maybe the satellite was having some difficulty. That can happen. That happens a lot. And
even an aircraft going in the path of the transmission, right?
Sure. There's all sorts of things that can garble the satellite. So I'm going to guess, just from the fact that you propose, YouTube has a different way to get the signal from ABC. And maybe even, I wouldn't be surprised, I've seen this happen. Sometimes companies just say, look, it's expensive. It costs a lot of money, but we're going to put fiber in because we want a nice, clean signal from ABC. And ABC is important enough to Google. They probably did that with all the networks. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I cannot find it on the internet. But no, given what I've learned about television and about this stuff, that is another alternative that eliminates going through the air. You can get direct fiber, and it is going to be better quality. Bet you that's what YouTube's doing. Great question.
We've been talking in the chat room. Howard in the chat room mentioned an immersive cinema format called Screen X, which apparently comes from Korea. Well, okay. Which basically has a screen in front of you and then screens on the side to give you a quote-unquote immersive experience. I hadn't heard of ScreenX before, so Howard, thank you very much for alerting me to that. There is actually one such theater in L.A., so I'm going to go to that. It's downtown L.A., which is not great, but okay, better than nothing. But it reminded me very much of another, almost exactly the same format called Barco Escape, which did exactly the same thing. Screen in front, screens on the side. However, looking at the ScreenX website, it looks very much like the screens on the side extend well into the audience. I'm not sure. This could be an artifact of the wide-angle lens used to take a picture. But in any event, with Barco Escape, you had to be in the first few front rows. Say that 3 times fast. Because the screen only came out a certain distance, the side screens, I should say, only came out a certain distance. And I just saw an article as I was looking at this during the show there, that the Barco Escape system has suspended operations effective mid-February 2018. So that's well over a year now that they haven't done it. Plus, apparently, they only had something like 36 locations, whereas ScreenX currently has 128, or did by the end of 2017. So maybe more now. It's backed by the distributor called CGV. Now, of course, the problem there, two things come to mind. One is it's not 3D. It's still 2D, but you just have images on the side. And your peripheral vision is very much less acute than your vision straight ahead. So the screens on the side are going to look pretty soft, pretty low res, unless you actually turn your head and go over there and look at them. The other thing is it's not 3D. It's 2D. It's just you have pictures around you instead of right in front of you. The idea of light field technology is to provide an actual holographic image. Now, holography, to be perfectly technical, which I guess we want to be on this show, is that it's created by laser interferometry. So you illuminate an object with lasers coming at it from different directions, and the interference pattern creates the holographic image. But and there are things called white light holograms, which the lasers create the image, but they can be reconstructed using white light. Light field technology isn't that specifically. It doesn't use lasers. But it is truly holographic because it's recreating the light rays that are coming from any direction as they reflect off of objects. And that's really the key to what light field technology is, and why it's different from actual holography, although this IDEA group does tend to refer to light field imaging as holographic, because it is. Jim 4, why am I not synced while talking? And we're working on that problem. That's a bad problem. When Leo was talking about the process of getting audio from his microphone to the end point, it's incredibly complicated, and no wonder there's a lot of lag. But apparently I'm the only guest on the show that has this problem of all the guests on the show. So it's probably due to the audio interface that I'm using. And so I'm hoping that a Focusrite or something else will do a better job. Beatmaster, talking about Star Wars, are you planning to visit Galaxy's Edge? Yeah, I probably will, because I'm interested in it, but it's so crowded, and Disneyland itself is so expensive. I mean, I love Disneyland. I used to go there as a kid for birthdays and stuff like that, but it's gotten so expensive, and I'm sure the Star Wars thing is so crowded and with long lines. I don't want to spend $100 or $200 or whatever it is to stand in a line for 3 hours before getting on the Millennium Falcon for a 3-minute ride or a 5-minute ride, something like that. I'll probably do it just because my wife said the same thing to me last night. Don't you want to go to Star Wars Galaxy Edge? We saw a commercial for it. And I said, yeah, I do. She's not a big Star Wars fan or a Disneyland fan for that matter. So, do I want to go by myself? No. She'd probably go with me, but I know she wouldn't be having all that much fun. Let's see. Lawn Dog, I might still have some e-tickets for Disneyland somewhere. I remember e-tickets. I don't think I have any, but I do remember them. Let's see here. Yeah, we've been talking about Barco Escape. Oh, Steve in San Diego was complaining that it's really sad for him and me too to see parents bring an infant to something like Dark Phoenix that's going to be really loud and is going to, have potential impact on their hearing from infancy. Don't do it. Get a babysitter. Don't take your infant to see really loud movies. That's just ridiculous. Beatmaster, yeah, well, when things like Force and lightsabers, we can't complain about scientific accuracy with the Leia hologram. Yeah, I guess you're right about that. User 8632 says, can you comment about OLED burn-in? I have burn-in only at, let's see here, where was that? Where was that? I'm so sorry. My chat room thing just jumped. And, here it is, user 8632. I have a burn-in only after a year-ish, OLED not set too bright either. Well, the question is, what is your burn-in? Is it, do you watch a lot of news stations with a ticker along the bottom? That could do it. Do you watch the same channel all the time with a bug in the corner? That could do it. Really, I've had my OLED for, I think, 2 or 3 years now. 2 years at least, if not 3. And I don't have any burn-in, but I make sure that I don't leave the image on pause for many hours or days at a time. That's really what's going to do it. I tend to think that OLED burn-in is less of an issue than a lot of people make it out to be. But I have heard other people that I trust say, no, it's a real issue. So just don't keep the TV on something on a channel with a ticker or a bug in the corner or a video game with a scoreboard in the corner.
I have to stop you because, as you can see, there's seconds left. Thank you, Scott. Have a great week.
Thanks, you too. See you next week.
Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, all that stuff. Augmented reality. I got the new Oculus Quest. I have mixed feelings about VR. Remember, I was talking with Scott half an hour ago, and I had for a long time thought, 3D movies, I don't want to go see them. And I don't want 3D on my TV. I said, this is a gimmick. Now, in this case, I think I was proven right, although I still talk to people. I love 3D movies. I love them. Never worked for me. And then everybody got very excited about VR, virtual reality. You know, put on the visor, that thing that makes you look like a complete dork. And as if you weren't dorky enough, then you start, laser fighting. You start doing your dancing around. You can't see how dummy you look because you think you're, in a space colony fighting off giant bugs. But everybody around you, I got to tell you, everybody around you says, "Oh boy." And the only reason I know this is we have a Vive, the HTC Vive system at home in our living room, and a 16-year-old with other 16-year-olds, and they spend inordinate amounts of time doing menial office work is one of the games they love. It's called Office Simulator. So just get a job. You could do all this and get paid for it. Stapling, Xeroxing. Of course, in Office Simulator, you can throw your cup of coffee at a coworker. So actually, maybe it's a pretty good simulation. Anyway, I look at them and they look completely goofy. Do you ever play any VR games? Don't you look goofy? When you see people doing this, you look goofy. But I want to give it everything, I don't want to be the guy. I don't want to be that old guy who says, "Oh, you kids, why you're." So I want to give it the benefit of the doubt. So I do. I have an Oculus Rift. It was on the Kickstarter when it first came out. I bought it and I got the original version. I got the updated version and I got the HTC Vive. And now Oculus, the Facebook company that's well funded, has come out with a new product that has some real advantages over the old product. It's called the Oculus Quest, and the idea is, the problem with the ones that I've got so far is you've got a big tail coming off of your visor going to a big, massive computer, an expensive computer with lots of horsepower, lots of graphics power. And that's not, in the long run, that's kind of a non-starter. So the Oculus Quest is like a Rift, but it's standalone. It doesn't have a tail. It's all in one. Everything's built into the headset. No wires, no computer. Now, it's still, if you get it and the controllers, about $600, but actually it's $666 because I got the extra faceplate because of another thing they never talk about in the ads for these things is when somebody's doing a virtual reality game and it's very strenuous, they sweat, and they sweat right into the visor. And then it's your turn. Well, I don't want to spell it out, but it's not fun. So I got you can replace the face plates to be comfortable, basically little sponges. Am I getting too graphic here? So you take the sponge off that's soaking wet from the previous player, and you put a different one. So I bought a second sponge. $666 for the complete kit. $500 for 128 gig storage, plus you need the touch controllers so that you can have hands in this virtual world. You still can't really walk around. This is something, and if you think about it, that's probably a good thing because you can't see. So if you start walking around, you for sure trip over the coffee table or bang into a wall. So they still have like a virtual barrier, and you say, nope, stay here, stay within this area. But all the tracking is built into the headset. And so it's relatively inexpensive, plays most of the same games that, like Super Hot is the one the kids love, that Oculus and Vive made famous. And they also love Beat Saber. It's like Guitar Hero with lightsabers. And you're listening to a song, and then you're beating you couldn't look stupider. Let me just put it this way. Anyway, I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, but I feel like this ain't the holodeck, okay? We got a ways to go. With a lot of this technology, we got a ways to go. 8888 Ask Leo. Let's talk high tech. That's my phone number, 888-827-5536. Going to line 2, Jody in Los Angeles. Hi, Jody.
Hello, Leo. It's good to hear your voice again.
Thanks for calling again.
It's interesting. I wasn't going to talk about 3D or the Oculus or anything, but this past year I've been involved in a very interesting project, which is certainly niche, but it's really very strategic, and that is we shot a knee replacement surgery with three different angles of 3D cameras.
Interesting.
Cut that stuff together, and we're showing this to surgeons to teach them how to do these procedures. So they can see the best angle right over the doctor's shoulder. And there have been studies that show that part of the brain is activated in a different way when you're doing 3D from just a 2D video, and
now,
it goes to memory retention.
It makes perfect sense for training. In fact, a lot of times you see the demos. But are you using virtual reality, which blocks out the world, or augmented reality, which lets you see the world and something superimposed upon it?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Both and neither, because we're doing some of it is just
on a screen.
3D video.
Yeah.
Here, watch this.
Yeah, and you can see there's plenty of that on YouTube and Facebook, this 3D video. You can zoom around. And if you have visors and you're watching that stuff, as you turn your head, you zoom around instead of having to do it with your mouse.
Yeah. So we're doing one version of this where it's just a plain old 3D video. You just put this on and watch it because you don't have a 3D TV, but you can sure see it in 3D with Oculus.
Right.
And then we have another version of it that is going to be augmented. And then we have another version, which is VR surgery. So you actually, with the controllers, can do this surgery with a doctor guiding you. It's a really cool thing.
See, that's a great... I think these specialized uses make a lot of sense. We also know that VR is very useful in treating PTSD and other psychiatric issues. So I'm not saying these things are completely useless. I'm just wondering how they're going to end, what's going to end up being the real use for it. So I think it's great. Yeah. Defend it. I think that's a great defense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the instructional side of it, the academic side, there's much more utility in that than there is just the consumer, as it's been proven.
Yes.
So, anyway,
good.
It's a pretty cool technology, and doctors who've seen it are like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this. And most doctors don't get to stand in a surgery up close and view over the doctor's shoulder.
What a great way to learn.
They do it.
Now, what do you shoot? What kind of cameras are you using to shoot this?
Well, the first set that we've done this one time so far, and we used a variety of cameras. I live here in LA, and I work with a company called Radiant Images, who is kind of one of the forefront companies who creates 3D and VR and 360 and bullet cam and all that jazz. They repurpose and invent some of their own tools. So we had some kind of proprietary systems that they made, and we'll start with like the camera brain from a camera like an F55 or maybe one of the higher end Reds or something.
Yeah. So this is a fairly expensive setup, but fine. I mean, it's for good reason.
Yeah, and I also, believe it or not, about 7 or 8 years ago, when Sony was making their one-piece professional 3D cameras, I had done some camera demos for them as a cinematographer and let me keep one of their small little handy cams, which was 3D. And I used that in there, too, just to kind of walk around and get different angles. And it was amazing how good that stuff looked. They've gotten pretty good.
I have a Ricoh Theta Z1, which is a $1,000 360 camera, and it is 4K. And what's more importantly, it has surround sound. I think people underestimate the importance of sound. Hey, I have to take a break. Can you hang on because I didn't get to your question? But I really appreciate the conversation. I want to make sure people understand there is potential value here. But we've got a ways to go, maybe. And maybe you shouldn't spend $666 on a visor that's going to make you look silly. Yeah. 8888 Ask Leo. Hang on, we'll talk when we come back, because you did call with a question, I know. We'll do that next, Jody. 8888 Ask Leo. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. And again, the website, which is free, there's no sign up, techguylabs.com. Sorry, Jody. I didn't mean to do that to you. You still there?
Yep, still here.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's really interesting. A really good use of 3D.
And it's obviously a niche thing, But I tell you, what's kind of scary is that the way that surgeons learn how to do a knee replacement, they read a PDF, and it shows them, okay, here's the steps. If they're lucky, they might get to observe a surgery from 15 feet away and maybe work on a cadaver, which is not the same thing. And then guess what? They do it.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary.
You don't want to be that first guy. That's why I always when surgery is involved, say, well, how many times have you done this?
Exactly. That's the first question you want to ask.
Yeah.
Pilot, how many times have you flown this plane?
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to do it first. So I appreciate any patient who is willing to do that, but it's not me.
Yeah, same here. But it's been an amazing response from surgeons.
I bet.
mean, more than we anticipated. They're like, oh my gosh, this is a whole new world.
That's super cool. Yeah.
So we're doing some different surgeries now, and there's other companies coming up and saying, hey, can you do this for us? Because we know this.
Wow.
Of course, it's going to help promote their knee surgery device, but it's going to do much.
Well, but that's who's doing the training now anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Very interesting. Really, really interesting.
You would love it. We color grade and do the 3D depth on a facility here in LA that's a professional colorist, and he's got like a 20-foot screen. So we're watching these surgeries on this 20-foot screen in 3D.
You have a stronger stomach than I do.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. Some of the guys that were handling the files were like, what do we have to do, really? But it's very fun.
Cool.
If you're ever in LA, I wish you could get a hold of me. I'd take you down there and let you see some of the technology.
I would. That would be fascinating. We'll have to figure out how to do that because I would very much like to do it. What do you think about using it to do movies, fiction, and stuff like that? Do you think there's...
There's so much. There's two schools of thought on that. One is you shoot it in 2D and you do a conversion, which is very expensive.
Right.
And then you do Jim Cameron's way, which is we're actually going to shoot it in 3D, which I think is always going to be more realistic because you actually do have two physical views of the scene. I still think it's very niche. Jim, I say Jim like he's my buddy. We have worked together a couple of times, but he did say, everything's going to be 3D, and clearly that was one of the few places where he was wrong.
Yeah.
I think there is a place for it. I really do. But I still think it's a real niche filmmaking tool. I don't know that they're making I don't know if they're making their money back in 3D with the extra amount of time and the crazy amount of expense to shoot it. And I have friends who worked on Avatar, and it's, very, very, very involved.
He's shooting the new Avatar in 3D high frame rate, right, though? I mean...
He's shooting with the Sony Venice, which has a kind of removable block. You can take the camera block and the lens off. The camera block becomes the size of a paperback book.
Wow.
And it's got a cable that connects it to the main part of
That's the new thing, isn't it? I love that.
Yeah.
It's all modular. Yeah.
Yeah. Put it on a Steadicam, handheld rig. It's very light.
Hang on. Here we go. We're coming back.
Okay.
Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. We were talking to Jody in Los Angeles. Jody was giving us some really interesting tidbits about how virtual reality is being used to train surgeons. But you did have a question, and I don't want to use up all your time with informational stuff. But thank you. That was fascinating. So
thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Yeah. What can I do to help you?
I saw an ad last week, just to back up a tiny bit. I have I think in computer years, it's 150 years old.
10 years old then,
older,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
11 even. And it's an older iMac, and it's 10, maybe 12 years old even. It's the one we have sitting in the kitchen that my wife is using. And I need to get her something new, but just don't have the budget to do it quite yet. And I saw an ad for in fact, there's several of them in it, and I was waiting for today because I'm not going to do anything until I ask Leo. It's a 21.5-inch iMac. It's an i3 2100 dual-core, 3.1 gigahertz.
Okay.
It's got a small hard drive in it, 250 gigabytes. They're asking $375.
What?
It's refurbished.
And who is it? Somebody you trust that's selling it?
Not entirely.
In other words, if it's on eBay, I would say maybe don't rush. But if it's from somebody with a storefront that you could go bang on their door, if it's not everything that's cracked up to be, maybe that's not so bad.
I mean, there's several sites selling it. I think it was even available on Amazon.
Okay.
It wasn't on the Apple Store in their refurbished area.
Yeah, that's always my recommendation when you get refurbished to buy it from the company that made it, because A, they'll give you the full warranty. B, it probably was barely used because California law forbids reselling of any product that's been sold and opened. So even if nobody even turned it on and returned it, they can't sell it as new. But those discounts are hundreds of dollars, not... In this case, you're getting $500 off, probably.
Yeah. And
What year is it? Do you know what year the iMac is?
I don't, and it didn't say. And I went on one of the websites to find out, and it's like, oh boy, there's so many configurations.
Do they give you a model number like A1294 or anything like that?
No. All it said was i3-2100 dual core, 3.1 gigahertz. And the research that I did, there were several that kind of fit that, and it seemed to maybe be 2010-ish. But it wasn't just one computer. I mean, there were several sites advertising these. So somebody has just dumped a bunch of these on the market.
Yeah.
I don't know if somebody...
Probably a big corporation had 1,000 of them.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, I'm looking at... actually, I'm looking at it right now on Amazon. Amazon Renewed. Which may not be an Amazon company. I don't know.
Right.
Amazon is not real good about enforcing this kind of stuff. That price
who lives on the Amazon.
Yeah, that price is really good. I think.
Well, my wife is doing Photoshop mostly. She is a professional photographer recently, and so she needs something that's just way, way, way faster than our ancient computer to basically do Photoshop on. Yeah. Do you think that would be fast enough processor to meet her needs, or would she still be facing frustration?
Well, a couple of the issues. It comes with OS 10 10.6. So we're at 10.
Right?
Yeah, so we're at 10.15. So that's going to be an issue only because it will hold you back with some. It's actually Snow Leopard with some of the stuff that you can do. And usually when you get a Snow Leopard Mac, that's the last. You can't go to Lion after that. Usually that's the end of the line, as they say, end of the line. Yes. And so, yeah, that would tell you that the vintage is about 2010, thereabouts, 2009, 2010. At that price, it's so inexpensive. As long, what kind of warranty are they giving you?
I think it was a year.
All right. It's not the latest and greatest. You can get a 21-inch iMac for $1,000. The brand new one.
Oh, can you really?
Yeah.
So that may really be the way to go.
It would be a lot faster. It would have an SSD in it. I'm not sure what. This probably is either a Fusion drive or an old-fashioned spinning hard drive.
I think it. Yeah, I don't even think it was a Fusion drive. I think it was just a regular hard drive. It was only 250 gigs, so it's not that big.
Yeah.
What would you say would be the minimum system, the minimum speed and processor that I should look for just basically doing Photoshop in one of the newer iMacs?
Photoshop wants a lot of RAM, so you're going to get at least 8 gigs of RAM. And that's true, probably. I wouldn't buy a Mac that didn't have 8 gigs of RAM at all.
Right.
And then I would say an i3 is fine, but quad core probably. More cores is better for Photoshop. It will use all the cores.
Okay.
Photoshop, I'm trying to remember.
You're using Lightroom as well.
Yeah, in Lightroom. I think they may not be they may not use more than one core, actually, as I'm thinking about it. They use the graphics processor, but that's, it's really a question of not whether it'll work, but just how much time it takes. And the only problem with Lightroom is it's kind of a pig as you go from picture to picture. And that's sometimes something a pro, say you take a wedding and shoot 1,000 pictures, you'd like to be able to go through those in less than 5 days. So that's where it really hurts, and I don't know what her workflow is. If she's just going to open a picture and work on it, it'll be fast enough. But if she wants to scan through pictures to select them and modify them, that sounds like you'd want a quad-core 8 gigs of RAM, almost certainly.
Okay, good. Well, I can kind of use that as a guideline.
Yeah.
Can I ask you one more real quick question?
Sure.
I have an Anchor Soundcore speaker that I use with my Amazon Echo device, which
Yep.
I don't want to say the word out loud.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Thank you. And I have a couple of them, and one of them works fine. The other one, it cuts in and out a lot, and it also disconnects a lot. I have to constantly reconnect it, and
It's frustrating.
So sorry, you're not finding a connected speaker, and it's like 6 feet away.
This is why I hate Bluetooth. I just hate Bluetooth.
Kind of maddening.
Yeah, it's very maddening. And Anchor makes good stuff. I wouldn't blame Anchor. In fact, what Anchor has really demonstrated is how much markup there is in high-end speakers and headphones from companies like Beats. It's all markup. Because Anchor is basically the same quality stuff, but they're selling it closer to the actual cost. And so, yes, if you're only Bluetooth doesn't operate well past 10 meters, but that's 30 feet. If you're within 6 feet, that's not the distance.
And it's constantly disconnecting and constantly.
But it's just one of them, not both of them.
Yeah.
I think you got a bum. I think you got a bum speaker.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. Factory reset the speaker, repair it. See, I mean, sometimes just a bad radio or a disconnected antenna would be enough to do that. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Johnny Jet coming up. Our show today, I bet, you know what? Dick D is coming up in a little bit. If he has a lot of valuable stuff in Disneyland, he really needs this. Simply Safe. Over 2 million burglaries are reported every year. I bet there's more than even are reported. A recent Gallup survey show Americans worry about burglary more than almost any other crime. But you know, just over 10% of break-ins are planned beforehand. That means 90% are just like, let's go knock over that house. Simply Safe protects your whole home. Every window, every room, every door with 24/7 monitoring for a fraction of the cost. Yes, you get a lawn sign. By the way, that lawn sign is going to deter that 90% of the guys who aren't planning ahead. Don't knock over that house. They got Simply Safe. Go to the next one. So that's good. And yes, you get 24/7 monitoring for a fraction of the cost of the other guys. In fact, their police dispatch is up to 3.5 times faster because they use video verification. No contract, no hidden fees, no fine print. The base unit's designed to blend right into your home. In fact, all of the units are. The sensors, the monitors, there's no wiring, no drilling. They're all wireless. You can even, if you move, you could take them with you. It's easy to order, easy to set up. Take you no more than an hour in most cases, unless you have a gigantic home. It's so easy. Prices are fair and honest. The monitoring, get ready for this. What do you pay for those other guys? Like $50 a month, $60? Simply Safe's $15 a month and no contract. Only 1 in 5 homes have home security. That's why burglars go, hey, let's knock this one over. That's because they make it so expensive and so hard. Simply Safe is designed to make it easy. That's why it's my choice. It should be yours. SimplySafe.com/twit. You'll get free shipping, a 60-day risk-free trial. Nothing to lose. SimplySafe.com/twit. That way they know you heard it here, and that helps us. Simply Safe, SimplySafe.com/twit. Thank you, Simply Safe, for protecting us all. He's been everywhere, man. He's breathing the mountain air, man. He's Johnny Jet, our traveling guru. All right, everybody say it together. It's hard, but I'm looking at the map, the Johnny Cash has been everywhere map, and they put little Johnny Cash pins in the map as they travel all over. He's been all over, man. Johnny Jet, how you doing? Good to see you back from visiting Dad in Florida. You're such a good son.
I just went for the day, really. I flew in. I was telling you off the air that before you book your flight, always look at the equipment, because American flies 9 flights a day between LA and Miami. And although my dad's an hour north of there, I'd much rather go there than Palm Beach, which is only 20 minutes away, because I can fly nonstop. But on one of those flights, they have a 777-300, a wide body, which is 2 aisles.
Ooh,
all the other planes are A321s or a 737, which are not great planes, and they're cramped. And also, even if first class is just, first class is nothing special, but on this 777, there's 58 business class seats and I think 10 first class seats where they're completely lie flat. So you are, and this time of year, by the way, is off season. So I actually, since I fly so much on American, I'm executive platinum, I get free upgrades if they're available. And my
there's
upgrade
a lot of empty seats. Yeah.
My upgrade cleared 5 days in advance. So I had lie flat seats. I mean, literally, I had to be snoring this morning because the flight was at 6:40, and I didn't sleep much last night. But the point is, always look at your equipment before you book your flight, because not all planes are created equal. And I think a lot of people now, after seeing all the 737 MAX, I think people had no idea what a 737 MAX was before, but now they all know that, they don't want to be on that plane at least the first few months after it returns, which could be in the fall or should be in the fall. But again, just look at your equipment. And
how do you look at your equipment, though? How do you know what plane's going to be on a flight? Do they tell you?
Yeah. So when I book my flights, I usually go to Google Flights. But then if I know I'm going to fly American because I want my miles and also be able to get upgraded for free, I go to AA.com, and then you can just see, it shows you what type of plane. So if you don't know your planes, you need to study up on them. But, I prefer the wide bodies. I don't like small regional jets. I like wide bodies. So, a 787, a 777, a 747, which American doesn't fly, and actually a lot of airlines don't, although Lufthansa flies the new 747-800, which actually is looks like the new Air Force One is going to be a 747-800. Nice. So you want or A380, you want a wide body, A350, and these are beautiful planes, and they just they're much more comfortable.
I always want a new plane. I don't care what the plane is. If it's new, I like it better.
Well, that 737 MAX is new.
Yeah, maybe that doesn't make sense. So, come to think of it,
the new planes kind of make me a little bit nervous because they haven't been tested.
That's a good point.
So,
all right. See, this is why you're the travel guy, and I'm just this guy sitting on a ball.
Well, and also with ships too. By the way, a lot of people tell me that cruise ships, you want to have an older ship because they haven't been redesigned with computers, so they can maximize every nook and cranny. So they really make the room small. Although if you're sailing on a really nice ship, then you probably do want a new ship that has a balcony and things like that.
It's a mix because newer, everything's going to be in better shape. But I have to say, we were on a Seabourn last year that was a brand new ship, and it was like that. It almost felt streamlined.
Yeah,
like there wasn't. It was like they maximized it.
Yeah, and that's what they do with these computers now. I mean, that's the whole thing with the computers. When I used to fly between New York and LA, I used to go every other week when my mom was sick with cancer, and I would get upgraded because I was just friendly to the agents. Now you cannot get upgraded unless you have elite status or you're paying for it, because the computer algorithms and the information that they give all the passengers, they know who's next on the upgrade list. They just can't bypass it.
Oh, that's no good. That's no good, man. You should be able to pull strings.
A little bit. Yeah, it's difficult to pull strings. In the old days, I'd just bring a box of chocolates and I'd be flying first class.
But is it not the case that since the computerization of ticketing, that generally prices have fallen?
Without a doubt, those prices have definitely gone down because you don't need to call a travel agent. You know what the prices are.
It seems like it's cheaper to fly these days than it used to be. I don't know. Maybe it's my imagination, but it does seem like that.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
Especially if we're talking about like 30 years ago. It's cheaper these days. And
30 years ago, I used to have put on a tie and a hat and white gloves before I'd get on the plane. You had to all dress up, and it was like a fancy thing. Now you just wear sweats.
Yeah.
No shoes.
You did. And actually, we were talking about the cruise ship. You said you have, you're going on a cruise.
I have one
fall.
coming up in October, November. Yeah, I'm very excited. This is an old ship. This ship is so old, they had to split it in half and extend it. It's a stretch cruise ship.
Oh yeah, which one is this?
That's the Sea. No, it's Silver Sea Spirit, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Silver Spirit.
So when you book a cruise, a good tip is, and we're talking about it off the air, is right when they come out with allowing you to book your excursions and your restaurant reservations, do it. Do not wait till you get on board or right before, because they're all gone. And once they're gone, you cannot get a reservation or a space. So
this is a lesson I learned the hard way, because I'm the kind of guy I like to play it by ear.
Yeah, me too.
And little did I know, by the time you're on the ship, it's too late. There's nothing left. It's all booked.
But you can always book in advance and cancel for free. I mean, always read the cancellation policies.
But usually, even like once you're on the boat, as long as it's 2 days before the excursion, you can cancel.
You can get right. Yeah. So always look at the cancellation policy. But I would book well in advance just so you are not left out, even if you don't know which excursion you really want to do. But do your research. So
good tips from Johnny Jet.
I do have an app for you.
Yes,
have time?
Sir. Yeah.
So Las Vegas, the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada is trying to compete with Uber and Lyft, and they came out with their own app. It's called Trip to Strip. Did you get that? Trip to Strip? So
all I know is what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, baby.
It's not that kind of strip, but it's a free app on Android and iOS, but I'm not sold on it. They call it a micro transit service. So I think it's like a
taxis or
no, it's like a van, and you can order it, but they don't pick up like right at your hotel. They pick up at bus stops at RTC bus stops and designated RTC paratransit stops.
Oh, okay.
And they don't go directly to your hotel when you drop off. Usually, they say they try to get you there, but if you're by yourself, it's only $6 from the airport to the Strip.
The airport's pretty close to the Strip in Las Vegas.
You can take an Uber for like $15, I think. I mean,
even better. I have seen gamblers who have gambled away even their cab fare. They only have one thing left in their possession, which is a plane ticket, walking to the airport. In fact, as you get to the approach to the Las Vegas McCarran Airport, you'll see people with roller bags in the 100-degree heat.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, yeah, my cabbie pointed out. He said, "See them? They gambled it all away, my friend."
But if you're by the MGM or down by the Mandalay Bay, I mean, you're right there.
Yeah.
If they had a tunnel, it would be easy.
They need it. That's what they're doing. Elon Musk is going to bore holes under Vegas.
I don't know. They're going to the whole taxi commission. They're not going to allow that stuff, but we'll see. But anyway, these micro transit vehicles can go up to 11 passengers, and if you don't have 11 people in your party, which you most likely don't, they just keep picking up. So it's kind of like Liverpool.
Yeah, it's like Airport Express. It's Trip to Strip.
But what
Johnny Jet? We're out of time, Johnny. Don't stop talking. Stop talking, my friend Johnny Jet. He's got so much information. He joins us every week. You find him at his website, johnnyjet.com. Lots more stuff there, including his great newsletters. Subscribe to those. They're free. Follow him on Twitter at johnnyjet and on Instagram for pictures of his travels. Are you hitting the road?
I'm always hitting the road.
Safe travels, Johnny. We'll see you next time. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Sorry, we just.
I understand.
I had to cut you off, man.
That's all right. It's been worse, believe me, at parties, by girls and stuff.
So, yeah, I guess that's all there is to say.
Yeah, I was just trying to say it is ADA compliant, which is.
That is important. Yeah.
Which is important.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, these are nice. These are those nice big old vans.
But I would rather
take. Have any windows? That's a little weird. Or maybe those are painted over. That's what they are.
Probably. I'm sure. I hate that too. By the way, when all these buses have all this stuff, you can't even see out of them. You can't take any good pictures.
Yeah. You need that in Vegas because the sun is a little hot.
That's true. The rep.
It's so hot.
But yeah.
Leo Laporte, the tech guy. I got to be geeky. 8888. Ask Leo the phone number. Ruben is in Los Angeles. Hi, Ruben.
Hey, Leo. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I couldn't be better. Thanks a lot. Happy Saturday and happy summer to you.
Happy summer.
So, thanks, man. So my question is, to get right to it, is that you used to talk a lot about Evernote as a solution to carry, to have, secure documents on your phone, your tablet, et cetera, and cross-platform and everything. But, it got so overblown and so huge for me.
Yes, and so expensive. Let's not forget, they raised the price, yeah.
So I've been looking for an alternative, and of course, I've Googled the 16, 17 different things that somebody came up with and what have you. But I was interested in what you thought what is a better solution that I can use that's going to be secure. And I don't know if that's what's that. My wife just kissed me and said hello, Leo. By the way.
Well, I'm sorry she kissed you and not me, but okay, we'll accept that. Hello, wifey.
Yeah. That's your incentive to
tell Leo hello. Yeah, I've replaced Evernote, which is too bad. I really loved Evernote. I was one of the and Evernote had a lot of really nice features, but when they raised their prices, I kind of thought, there must be a better way. Just like you, and I looked at a lot of plans. Evernote Basic is free, but if you want any of the premium features, it's $8 a month. And that seems like an awful lot for what is probably a simple function. So I'll tell you the one that's free, that's now secure is an interesting issue with Evernote. They did have note-by-note encryption, and as far as I could tell, that was strong encryption. So, but by default, nothing was encrypted. So everything you store in Evernote is visible to the Evernote guys, except for that, note-by-note encryption.
Okay.
My replacement for Evernote is free. It's from Microsoft. Maybe you've heard of them. Small company up in Redmond. They make something called OneNote.
Around somewhere,
yeah, they make something called OneNote. OneNote's awesome. It's free on everything. You don't have to have a Microsoft Office subscription. So it's free on Windows, free on Mac, free on iOS, free on Android. It is, in many ways, it's funny because Evernote and OneNote are hereditary enemies. Evernote was created really in response to OneNote. And they've kept parity in terms of features, I think. So in my opinion, OneNote is the first thing everybody should try because it's absolutely free. As far as security goes, I don't know about its encryption or whether it has encryption. I think of tools like that as basically not places you would store your super secret Bitcoin wallet password.
Right. Sure.
Another very good free one that is web-based but does have apps for many platforms is Google's Keep. And really the difference in OneNote and Keep is the way it looks. OneNote is a more traditional kind of notebook. It looks like a Microsoft Office document. Keep is more like a bulletin board where you tack up notes up there. So some people prefer one to the other. But both of them are absolutely free. So I don't understand what Evernote's value proposition is. What do I get for $8 a month that I can't get for free from Google or Microsoft?
Gotcha. Okay. I'll take a look at OneNote and see if that works for me. Yeah. I looked at, I messed around with Keep a little bit, and to be honest with you, I didn't get that deep into it to see if it's really what I need because it's just that's my fault. That's neither here nor there.
Well, it's there, and it looks very simple, but as you get deeper into it, one of the things I love about Keep is you can say, hey, you could put a shopping list in it, for instance, and have it automatically pop up when you get to the store. It knows your location. Oh, we lost him. He broke up and then disappeared. Maybe he was on his way to the moon. I don't know. But that's a nice feature. You can password protect notes in OneNote. I just don't, and I would imagine, given that it's Microsoft, it's pretty strong. The nice thing about OneNote compared to Evernote was note by note. OneNote, you can have a whole notebook, a whole section of a notebook password protected. In most cases, systems like this, and I'm pretty sure OneNote's one of them, if you get that kind of encryption, it's probable that Microsoft has the keys. So I wouldn't put anything in there that you really wanted to keep super secret. Just something to keep in mind. I'd have to investigate more thoroughly to see. But OneNote is really a great choice. I've started using that to share travel notes with my wife. So when we're planning a trip, we'll have a shared OneNote notebook that we both have access to. It's nice because it's on our phones and our tablets and our laptops, and we can add details about our trips. So she always knows, when the flights are, and I always know what she wants to see, things like that. So that's a really good choice. But there are a ton of others, similar programs. I mean, this is a very popular category. Somebody in the chat room mentioned Simple Note, which is not free, but is a very nice note-taking application that works cross-platform as well. There are a number of free and open source solutions out there that are very good. Some very old that have been around a long time, and some that are brand new. This seems to be a popular category for people to write. But I would say, what do you need? You know, you got OneNote. OneNote even has a web interface. So while there's no OneNote for Linux, you can use the OneNote web interface and have access to all your notes. I almost feel like, well, do we need to search farther? And then if you're an iOS, if you're Apple only, of course, Apple has its own notes, which is a very good program, but it's not cross-platform. To me, even if today I'm using all Apple gear, I want something that's going to be able to operate anywhere I choose to. I don't want to be locked in, and that's always what scares me about the Apple ecosystem. You know, they try to lock you in. That's almost their business model. You know, if you're locked in, then we don't have to worry about you defecting. If you've got all your notes in Apple's Notes program, well, then we don't have to worry about losing you to Microsoft or Linux or anything like that. That just philosophically bothers me a little bit. Let's go to Las Vegas. Say hello to Vino. Hi, Vino. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Vino. In Vino.
Hello.
Yes.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Hey, I'm fine. Listen, I have one question mainly, and that is, I know when I back up my iPhone or iPad, the photos would get transferred to my laptop. Am I right?
Sort of. Depends how you do it. So if you're doing it in iTunes on a Mac, it gets backed up to your laptop in a big blob. But if you have a Windows machine, or you choose to use Photos to back up your photos, then you will have them in an album. If on a Windows machine, you can choose the photo album you want to use, and it'll automatically launch and copy those photos over.
Okay, my question is really how to reverse that. I had a lot of photos before the digital age, okay?
Oh, you want to get photos onto the phone.
So I want to get the photos from the laptop to my phone.
So there's a number of ways to do this. My favorite way to do it would be a free way. It's from Google. It's called Google Photos.
I see.
So you've got to get those photos scanned in on your hard drive on your laptop. I'm going to presume you've done that. And then Google Photos has a built-in way to automatically synchronize from the desktop to your Google Photos library. Then you put the Google Photos app on your phone, Windows, iOS, Macintosh, Linux, whatever you're using. You'll be able to look at those photos, download any ones you want, and when you take pictures on your phone, it'll automatically go to that album on Google Photos too. So it's a two-way sync, and it's free. And Google Photos does a lot of other really useful things, including a very powerful search, face recognition, and more. I know sometimes people worry about Google, but this is a free service that just can't be beat. Just get the Google Photos synchronizer for your desktop. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. They call it Google, Vino, they call it Google Backup and Sync. And I presume most people have a Google account. You have a Gmail account?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Do you already use Google Photos?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. You're already halfway there.
Okay. Can I have a quick question?
Sure.
On Mint.
Yeah.
Can you, on Quicken in my laptop, I have classes and categories.
Yes.
Can I have that on Mint also?
Yes, you can. One of the things I like about Mint is it does a lot of that automatically. Now, it has categories. That is something Intuit does nicely on Quicken, which is you can have classes that the categories go within. It's like folders and subfolders. I'd have to look at Mint to see if it does the two-level thing. Let me just log in real quickly to my Mint. I love it because I don't, honestly, as a longtime Quicken user, I really loved Quicken, but it was a lot of work, right? Every month I'd have to enter my, or at least download it, if not hand enter my data in. Mint does this all automatically. And so, it's not a way to check the bank, if that's what you use these programs for, is just to make sure that the bank hasn't made mistakes, well, maybe that's not the best way to do it. But if you don't care about that, which I don't, because the bank never made any mistakes. They're pretty good these days. They're using computers too. So, and if they do, they usually figure it out and say, "Oh, we made a mistake." But so I'm looking at my Mint right now. So what it does is it automatically gets the information from the bank, automatically categorizes it.
How does it categorize it?
Well, it's not perfect, but it has a pretty good idea of the names of restaurants. You know, data these days, man, everything is known, right? So they can cross-reference the name of a business and say, oh, that's a restaurant. Oh, you bought pants. And so they do a pretty good job of categorizing. But if you want, like Lyft and Uber come into rental car and taxi. If you want, you can change that, you know, and you can recategorize it. It looks like they don't have classes. They just have the one level of categorization.
See, the class is the one which I want because I have a rental property.
Right.
And I also have stocks, investments.
Yeah, so now you want more of a bookkeeping program. And honestly, this is not that. This if you're running a business, I wouldn't use Mint. Mint is more so that you can see what you're, spending money on. You could do some basic budgeting, and it does it automatically. But it doesn't replace bookkeeping. So most people use QuickBooks for something like that.
Yeah.
And that's what we use here. And QuickBooks is nice because it can be as simple as you want or as sophisticated as you want. A lot of big businesses even use QuickBooks.
Yeah, I've used both Quicken and QuickBooks.
Oh, so you're familiar. Yeah, if you want to keep track of rental properties, I would use and investments. I would use QuickBooks.
I was hoping I could get all the information on my iPad rather than having to go to the laptop.
I know what you mean. Now, that may change with iOS 13 because Safari is going to be much more of a desktop browser. Is the problem with QuickBooks on your iPad that you can't use Safari for it? Is that the problem?
On the iPad?
Yeah.
No, I can. On the iPad, I can use the Safari.
So you can use QuickBooks in the browser.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There's no app. I don't know if there's an app.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's how we use it in the browser. But frankly, that's the easiest thing to do. Somebody is telling me, and this might be worth looking at, Vino, something called Wave apps. I've never heard of this, but it's supposedly Mint for business. So I'm going to look at this myself. Wave Financial.
Oh, okay. WAVE.
Yeah, and it's WAVEAPPS.com.
I see.
So it's more business focused. So that might be something to look at. I think QuickBooks is kind of the king of the hill in this, but that might be something to look at.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. It's been there for a long time.
Oh, and Scooter X is telling me, there is a QuickBooks app for iOS.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. And good to talk to you, Vina. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smart watches, augmented reality. 8888 Ask Leo is my phone number, 888-827-5536. We have an expert studio audience today. If you have any questions about Microsoft Yammer, Sarah's she's an intern at Microsoft in San Francisco working on the Yammer team. That's awesome. First-year engineering student, and you get to do this. You must be good. You must be really good at JavaScript, yeah? She says, I don't know. And also visiting us, the product lead, the manager for Samsung's incredible browser for their Android devices. Poorly named. It's called Internet. Maybe you've met it. But it is widely considered the fastest browser on any mobile platform. It's a really great browser. Nice to have you in studio as well. Wow. So if you have any questions about Yammer or Internet, 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number. On we go with the show. Line 4 is Shane in Roy, Washington. Hi, Shane.
Hey, Leo.
Welcome.
I was hoping you could spend some money.
I love spending other people's money. You bet.
I'm looking. I have a 2014 Mac Pro, and it's a quad. I mean, it's a i7, and I'm throwing Nikon D850 files at it.
Oh, that's a nice camera.
It's killing it. So I'm those are. I'm actually at a wedding site right now.
Oh dear. Oh, we need to help you right away.
So I'm about to start in a little bit. But anyway, I was hoping that you could tell me what the Mac Mini that I could, because I've got my monitor set up the way I like.
Yeah. I think it's funny because Apple, of course, released this, we don't know how much, but incredibly expensive Mac Pro. It'll be out in the fall. But honestly, before they even released that, when they updated the Mac Mini this year, I think they really signaled that they could have just made a crappy little tiny computer, and not done much to it. But they really re-engineered it, I think, significantly. And I think you can easily create a Mac Mini that will satisfy your needs. Are you using Lightroom?
I'm using Lightroom about 60% and Photoshop around 40%.
Yeah.
And I the research that I've done, Lightroom only uses 2 cores fully.
Right.
And Photoshop uses all the cores that you throw at it.
Yep.
That's what I kind of read. And that's part of the reason I'm calling, because I'm not understanding 3.6 gigahertz quad core versus a 3.0.
Right.
Why would I go to a higher, more expensive processor with more cores but slower? I don't understand.
So this is often the very common trade-off. So a little history here. Intel, who makes these microprocessors, hit a wall, basically. They realized that it was going to be very difficult for them to make processors any faster than 4 gigahertz. For a variety of reasons, mostly heat and power use. And they kind of retrenched. They said, well, wait a minute. We thought we would be able to make 8 gigahertz processors, but we can't. So what we're going to do, instead of making faster and faster processors, is put more and more processors on a single chip, a single die. And that's why now when you go to the store, very rarely will you get a computer with a single processor. Almost always you'll have at least dual core, often quad core. As you get more professional, the iMac Pro I bought last year had 10 cores, and Apple's promising with their new Mac Pro a 32-core processor. That's kind of like having a supercomputer on a chip. And the idea is, well, more processors mean even though they're not running any faster, you could do more things at once. But as you point out, it's very much dependent on the software you're using. Sometimes software will use all those cores. Apple's program like Final Cut, for instance, will gladly say, oh, you got 32 cores, I'm going to max them all out. But I rarely see on my iMac Pro, with my 10-core iMac Pro, very rarely, I have a little CPU monitor running, will I see all the cores in use. In fact, every once in a while it happens, and I kind of gleefully clap my hands and say, yay, I didn't waste $1,000. But what's happened with all these cores is they've actually tend to slow the clock speeds down. Now, often what happens is these clock speeds that they quote, for instance, the 3 gigahertz 6-core Mac Mini, the 3 gigahertz is kind of the base speed. They'll go up to 4-something gigahertz as needed. But what happens when they get that fast is a lot of heat's generated. And so in order to keep the processor from actually bursting into flames, sometimes they'll thermally gate these processors. They'll slow them down. So you can't, unfortunately these days, you can't really look at the specs for a computer and say, okay, I know that's what I want. If you know that and you did exactly the right research, that your workflow has tools that use multiple processors efficiently, then that's more important than the clock speed. But many games, I'll give you an example, many games are single core. They care more about raw processor speed and graphics processor speed than they do about multiple cores. And that's just kind of the way games are written. So if you're a gamer, you want a 4 gigahertz processor, even if it's only dual core or quad core, or a single core for that matter. But if you're using Photoshop, which will use all those cores, They don't, by the way, they don't always use all those cores. It's things like, okay, I'm going to do a Gaussian blur to a 40 megapixel image. Then all the cores will kick in. It's really useful and informative to watch these CPU meters as you're doing these things, because you realize, well, I'm wasting. They're just sitting there idle most of the time.
Right.
So for you, well, first of all, I would say raw processing in Lightroom is just awful, even on my 10-core iMac Pro. It's just awful, and that's on Adobe. I ended up buying Photo Mechanic. There's also a RAW processor, I think it's called, Digital RAW, something like that, for quickly culling photos and then importing the culled photos into Photoshop or Lightroom.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, because that workflow just in Lightroom is just unusable, and I don't care what you buy. Maybe if you get the new Mac Pro for $30,000, it'll be fast. But that seems silly to spend that much money on a program that's just written poorly.
So am I going to see a benefit of going to a better, more cores at a lower speed, or am I going to notice? I mean, because
well, remember the turbo. The turbo boost is what you care about. So that 3.6 quad-core iMac doesn't have turbo boost.
Okay.
The 3.0 will turbo boost up to 4.1 gigahertz. I'm looking at the specs right now.
So if I put a fan under it, like one of those cooling fans,
keep
for a
it cool.
laptop,
And I don't know. The Mac Mini is a pretty small case, so I don't know what the thermals are like in there. But that app, on laptops, that's a big issue. You can buy a laptop with far more processor than you'll ever get to use because of thermal gating. The other issue for you is RAM. And that is one thing you probably know. Both Lightroom and Photoshop will adore RAM. And the more RAM you have, the faster the SSD, the more RAM you have, the better that's going to be.
So right now I have 16 gigs, and I was thinking going 32, but I was also thinking, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go 64.
I don't think, yeah, okay. You're like me. I have no idea if that helps. In fact, if you look at the curve, there's the biggest improvement is 16 to 32, and then it starts to flatten out. Performance curve starts to flatten out after 32. They're going to get a little more, but it's going to cost a lot more.
Well, when you're throwing 48 megapixel images.
Right. You'd like to load those images in memory, right? And in Photoshop and Lightroom, it's not just the images, it's all the layers. And all the scratch copies. So, yeah,
my scratch disk is filling up.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's part of RAM.
No, scratch disk is hard drive, and that's why you want a very, very fast hard drive. And they do have good SSDs in there. They're PCIe based, which means that's going to be faster.
And am I going to notice a difference in the SSDs that I had from 2014 and now, or is it pretty much the same?
Well, whether you'll notice it, I don't know, but they are definitely faster.
Okay.
So, yes, I think this Mac Mini is a good choice if you don't want to lay out $5,000, which is a starting point for an iMac. I ended up spending on the iMac Pro $7,000 to get the 10-core. That's crazy. And by the way, if you're going to buy a Mac Pro in the fall, plan on spending $30,000.
Yeah.
So get a Mac Mini.
I'm going to be throwing. I have a Maverick Pro 2, and I'm going to be throwing video footage at it.
There you go.
And so I'm getting Final Cut, and I want to be able to do that. So I'm assuming.
I think for most people, just like you, the Mac Mini is the right choice. It has more ports than any Mac have made now. It's really good for that. They really made it. That was a big, big improvement on the Mac Mini. They have a full-size HDMI out. They have Thunderbolt 3. They really did a nice job. RAM does go up to 64, which is another thing pros really want. The graphics on there is, the Intel-based graphics, but it supports the any GPU. That's built into the operating system now. And you have Thunderbolt 3, so you could put an external GPU of any kind on that. That would also help you a lot.
So that maybe I should upgrade that in a couple of years.
Yep.
and do that.
My friend Renee Ritchie, who is over at iMore, just actually put out a video today. Thank you, Scooter X. It says, turns out you can get a lot of Mac Mini for half the price of a Pro. Might want to watch that too.
Okay.
I think this is
solidified what I need.
I love the Mini. I think Apple has been listening, and all of a sudden the Mac is back, baby.
Well, there's no reason for me to spend money on a monitor when I have a big monitor.
Yeah. And of course, a monitor is really important to a photographer. So I like the idea. That's the problem with the iMac. You're going to be using Apple's monitor. They're good, but you don't necessarily want that one. You might want a different one.
All right, thanks, Leo. I appreciate it. My family calls you Lilo because my kids don't know how to say your name. I have two kids.
Lilo and Stitch.
Lilo.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I'm glad you listen. I'm sorry, kids. I apologize for Dad's habit, but it's helping pay the bills. Have a great wedding shoot.
All right, man.
Have fun. Take care. Yeah, that Nikon 850, very nice camera. But 40 megabyte file sizes. I mean, huge. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number. More of your calls coming up. Stay right here. It ain't broke. It's the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. The phone number. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. We have an open studio, so we sometimes get really fun studio audiences. One of the members of our studio audience used to work for Nokia, and I had to pull out one of my favorite phones of all time. Holy cow, this is almost 15 years old, something like that. This is the Nokia N9 T3i. It looks kind of like a flip phone that mated with a video camera. So you can hold it up, you can shoot video on it. This is how I met our photography guru, Chris Marquardt. He had one of these and interviewed me on this thing. I said, "What's that? That is cool. It's my phone." Sometimes I feel like innovation has disappeared in smartphones. We now just they're all black glass slabs. This thing, what a clever idea. It's a video camera, it's a phone, and oh, by the way, they made a mirrored surface on one side so you could check your hair before you shot the video. Now that's thinking. It even has a little lens cap. 8888 Ask Leo. Ah, those were the days. Vicky in Rialto, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Vicky.
Howdy.
I'm sorry to keep you on hold so long. You're very patient. Thank you.
That's okay. I'm just glad to be able to speak to you.
Well, what can I do for you?
Well, I'm want to get another phone, and I don't know that much about it. The phone I have now is a GS6, and I cracked the screen, and I think the contract is up on it now, so I'm thinking I need to replace it, but I don't know if I don't think I could afford Apple. I'm on Social Security, so I'm looking at something that I'm can afford. And so I thought, well, I need to think out of the box and not necessarily get another Samsung, but I know you know about all these things, and mostly I do. I use it to ask Google questions, take pictures, and find my daughter in a store.
By calling her, texting her, or just playing a really loud song on the song?
No. I just call her.
No, these things, you know what? Smartphones are amazing. It's a little computer in your pocket. And by the way, that Galaxy S6, that was the phone. I wasn't crazy about the S5, but when the S6 came out, that was, to me, the breakthrough for Samsung. And you're blessed with a camera that is almost as good as today's cameras. That was the first really good camera phone. No need to go with Apple. Apple is kind of pricey, as you point out. The reason people buy Apple is because everybody else has Apple. Yeah. But you're used to Samsung. I see no reason not to get an Android device. Here's the thing with Android devices. It's really important. You want to get an Android device that's going to get security patches on a regular basis, just like any computer these days. Google puts out monthly patches, and it's really important that any Android phone you buy is on the latest version of Android, which right now is Android 9, and we'll be getting those monthly security patches in a fairly timely fashion. So I'm going to tell you a couple of phones. You could get an older Samsung, an S7 or an S8. They're currently up to 10, but you could still get the old ones.
I'm sorry. My daughter said we have an S7.
Okay.
That shows you how technical.
So you can get an S9 or S8. You could also, I would take a look at, if I were you, the Motorola G series. These are low-cost phones. They're as low as $200 to $400. And I think they're very good. The current is the G6, and that's probably my recommendation for you. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Who's your carrier?
Well, right now it's AT&T.
All right. So AT&T, you have a couple of choices. You can go to them and buy it, and sometimes they'll give you a deal because they want to keep you as a customer. But usually what you get in that case is a junkier phone, a phone I wouldn't recommend. They say, well, we'll give you this free phone if you'll stick around. But the free phones aren't great. So I don't know if AT&T has the Motorola's to try in their store, but you could...
I'm looking on one. It says they have a Motorola Moto G7.
Yeah, that's the latest.
Okay, at Best Buy.
Yep, and then you can either get it ready to go for AT&T or just get it what we call unlocked, and then you could put your AT&T SIM card in it, and it'll be an AT&T phone. It is certainly compatible.
Okay, what about the camera?
Excellent camera. Every bit as good as the S7 that you have. Oh, wow. Right now, Best Buy is offering $100 off on an unlocked G7.
Well,
that's pretty good. Yeah, I would say go get one at Best Buy.
Okay, because we have gone through Costco and gotten, some benefits from getting it.
Or get it at, Costco's great about returns, so that's another.
They're excellent.
Yeah. It's an excellent phone. I would say in every respect, it's a very good phone.
Well, what kind of service, like AT&T or?
Yeah, just if you're happy with AT&T, just stick with AT&T. But you could go if and get another service that might be less expensive, like Mint Mobile.
Well, Sprint is saying $25 a month for one.
Sprint's pretty bad. If Sprint's okay in your neighborhood, maybe.
I don't know, because I had Sprint before in Tennessee, and I was at my son's house, and I had to go in the front yard to get service. But they have a lot of mountains there.
Well, Sprint's good in some areas. That's the problem. In some areas it's good, some areas it's not so good. I would not use Sprint around here.
Okay, so you think that AT&T is
AT&T
good?
has the best coverage, along with Verizon. But you can get a better deal at T-Mobile, and then there are other carriers that have even better deals. If you go to Best Buy, they will have a variety of choices there. You can compare services. There are a lot of companies. Mint, I'll give you Mint as an example. It's mintmobile.com.
It's MINT?
Yep. And they're a really good service, I think. They charge $15 a month. You bring your own phone, though.
Uh-huh.
And you pay more if you need more data, that kind of thing. But they start at pretty low cost. So there's a lot of companies like that. And what they do is they resell service from AT&T or Sprint or somebody else. I'm not sure who Mint resells from. I have to check. But that's one I'm familiar with. I know I have a lot of friends that use it, and it's really affordable.
Okay.
So you can go to Mint Mobile, and for that one, you would go to Best Buy. You'd buy an unlocked G7 or G6 if you wanted, or save money, and then you'd go online to Mint Mobile, and you'd say, "Here's my phone. Send me a SIM," and they'd activate it for you.
Okay. Well, probably. Do you think Best Buy would activate it for me?
And Best Buy has other plans. I don't know if they have Mint, but they have other solutions as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. I need to talk to AT&T, but you know how it is. Once you're a customer, you don't get the deals that if you're brand new.
Well, yeah, unless you threaten to leave. Sometimes you say, I'm moving. I want to close my account. Sometimes they'll go, "Oh, what can we do to save you?" And they'll even send you to a new rep that's their what do they call it? They have a funny name for it, for the reps that are there.
Escalation.
Yeah, not quite escalation. It's like don't leave us, please, rep. And they'll often can offer you. They offer you deals.
Yeah,
They call them the customer retention expert. That's it.
Yeah. Because we're also looking at the TV provider, and some of them have cell phones and that.
Stop. Terrible.
Okay.
Best Buy will do Mint. I've just found out.
Okay.
I got to run, but I think you're in good shape, Vicki. 8888, ask Leo the phone number. We go to line 5, Greg in Anaheim. Hello, Greg.
Hey, Leo. How you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. we've talked before in the past. You're always very helpful when I need to have a question answered.
Usually the people I don't help don't call back. So it's kind of a self-selecting group. I'm never calling that Leo again. He steered me wrong. What can I do for you?
Well, I'm with a club of RVers. There's about 400 of us, I guess.
Fun.
And the guy who did the guy who was our banker and did all of our club management stuff like that has since left the group. We've now got somebody else who's going to be the treasurer, and I'm looking to help them out with maintaining their database of people. I mean, right now we're using a simple spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But I'd like to have something where if we're going to have a club rally with 60 or 70 members that show up and they pay us, we can document it with Inside to see who owes what, if they've got a balance or anything like that. I'm looking for basically CRM software that can be web-based so that two of us work on a Mac and two of us work on a PC. We'd all like to be able to access it wherever we are across the country.
How big is your database? How many members do you have?
About 400.
Okay, so it's not huge. Ah, boy, you
and of
got...
course, like everything else, Leo, we're looking either for cheap or free.
So you want a web-based solution, so that way it's completely cross-platform.
Right, and no matter where you are, you have access to it. So
that's the advantage of web-based, and that's why almost everything's moved to the web these days, right? It just makes a lot of sense. I am not an expert on this, and I don't know. I am going to take an opportunity to make a plug for one of our podcast sponsors, because this is what they do. They're called Capterra, CAPTERRA.com. And what they are is basically a directory of business software. And so you can enter in what you're looking for and your various parameters. They have a good filter system. They also have a very good reviews section. And I would almost guarantee that if it is kind of CRM, but there's more to it than that, because you also have accounts you want to keep track of. I don't know off the top of my head, and certainly I will allow anybody who has a suggestion to either call you or go to our website and comment, because it's open for all at techguylabs.com. But I guess I'm going to punt and say, why don't you check out Capterra and see if you can find something there? I think they're a very good resource. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, of course. That's why they buy ads on our podcast, to remind people. It's a really kind of cool service that you can go in. It doesn't cost anything, and you can say, "Look, I want CRM software that's free, that'll handle 400 people, that will keep track of accounts and stuff like that." I bet you could find something. I don't, off the top of my head, know of. Trying to think what would be useful, and I can't off the top of my head think of anything specific for that. That seems like that would be a good software category actually for people, because there's a lot of nonprofits that need to do exactly this. So I don't know off the top of my head. I wish I had a better answer for you. I'm sorry you held on all this time and I didn't help you. See, you're never going to call back.
Okay.
You're never going to call back, Greg.
No, we'll always call back. As a matter of fact, my wife and I, we're planning a trip to Quebec this year to attend the manufacturer of our RV. They had their annual September rally. We're going to go to that.
Oh, how fun.
And on the way back, hit up like Branson and a few more places. But if we get the opportunity to come up north,
please come visit.
And we'll come up and we'll get you to set a chair out for us.
Good. And we have a big parking lot. Could fit about, I'd say a dozen RVs. And we're right near the KOA in Petaluma, which is a very nice RV place.
Yes, I've stayed there before.
Yeah, very nice. Well, good. I'd love to see it. One I'm going to mention, one company. The problem with CRM is it tends to be sales focused. When they say customer relation management, they really mean, customers. Yeah. Right. But I've been using Monday.com, which is a web-based. I don't know if it would do the account stuff, but I really like it. So I would take a look at that anyway. This is what I like about it is very modern. And I know a lot of people really like it. So that's something I think you might want to look at, Monday.com. But Capterra should have a list of all of them. I am not an expert on this. I have no customers. I just have friends who listen to the radio show. And you're one of them. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks a lot, Leo. Appreciate it.
Take care. My pleasure. I don't know. I'm not real good on stuff like this because I literally don't have any customers. Benny in Pasadena. I don't do it. Benny in Pasadena. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hey, Leo. I don't really know much about it, but like, for example, starting a business. I know we're talking about like domains, and I guess GoDaddy would be.
Do not go to GoDaddy. I'm gonna take advantage of my bully pulpit here to say I hate GoDaddy. Okay. I don't like their business practices, and I don't think they're the best choice for domain registrar. So, if you're creating a business or having a baby or getting married, any change in life circumstances, you might well want to create a domain name for that purpose. So when a baby is born, right, you want to get the kid their domain name, the .com, littlebabylaporte.com. When you start a new business, very important, you get the domain name. The good news, well, there's bad news and good news. The bad news is most of the .com's gone, right? Okay. Because they've been around for a long time, and any good name, that's why you see all these new startups have weird names like Zloop and Fergalop, because you can't use an English language word because they're all taken. But there's other dots, and there's lots of them. .net, .tv, .fm, there's lots of them. So I would suggest, my favorite is another advertiser, but it's the one I use, is Hover, HOVER.com. They're nice because they're Canadian. They have 400 different end domains, so you don't have to be limited to .com. And it's just worth it doing a search there. So they're good. But all that does for you is buy the name. And the name price can range from $10 a year to hundreds or thousands even a year, depending on whether you have to buy it from somebody or if it's available. But it's good idea to start your search somewhere like hover.com. I like them. And then once you get the domain name, then you need a website, right? A lot of website hosts will register a domain name for you, which is a convenience for some. I like separating those two jobs because what if I want to move web hosts? I don't want to have to move the domain name. I just want to point it to a new host. So typically I'll use Hover to register a domain name, and then I'll use other companies to host the domains. Okay. Do you have a recommendation for like other companies? Yeah, well, another sponsor is WordPress.com, but there's quite a few. Blogger, which is Google's blogging platform, is free. Blogger.com, or maybe it's blogspot.com. I think both would work. Squarespace is another very well-known. There's Wix and Weebly. There are a lot of companies that do this kind of hosting, and I would stick with the big ones in this regard. But you should absolutely, if you're starting a business, you need to have a domain, a website that's your own. It's fine to have, you probably should have a Facebook account and a Twitter feed and all of that for publicity. But you want a site that's yours that you own, and you want a name that's yours that you own. If you don't have that, I feel like you're not just, people won't, it's like having a Hotmail address. People won't take you seriously. Your email address should be your domain. Your website, you should have a website. That's just the right thing. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Everybody, get up and boogie, because it's time for the Gizwiz. That's right. Now, Dick, I know you've shaken a tail feather to this song.
I have.
Once or twice.
Exactly.
Dick DeBartolo, Mad Magazine's maddest writer. We call him our Gizmo Wizard, or Gizwiz for short, because he's always got some crazy doohickey or gadget for us. What do you have today?
Well, I do. Last week in New York City at the Javits Center was a thing called CE Week, a mini CES thing.
Yeah.
And I met the folks from Hyper there. Do you know the company Hyper?
Yes, I have many of their products.
Yes, Leo. They are the king of Kickstarter, because the guy told me, I think he said, Dick, this is our 21st.
Holy cow.
Kickstarter project.
I use their iPad dongle, plugs into my new iPad Pro, and gives me every kind of extension.
Exactly.
It's so great.
Yes, HDMI out, and you can add SD cards. Well, they came up with a little thing called Hypercube. And Hypercube goes between your phone charging cable and the USB port where you would normally plug in your phone charging cable. This little cube has a place for a micro SD card, up to 2 gigabytes, they say. And now, as you charge your phone, everything on your phone is copied off to the little SD card.
Oh, my goodness. So it's a little backup device.
It's a little backup thing. Or you can, and there's an extra USB out if you actually want to back it up to a thumb drive or a mini hard drive. You can do that. Now, it's wildly successful, Leo. So they told me it's starting Monday, this past Monday, at $29. A couple of thousand of them, but I just looked, and I think 7 are left. They wanted $100,000 goal. They made that in 8 hours.
And one of the reasons is a lot of times I'll buy stuff on Kickstarter and regret it, but I've bought 2 or 3 of their products from Kickstarter. They're not some fly by night. They know how to make hardware.
No, and they know how to do Kickstarter because this is, like I said, the 21st.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Now, a few years ago, I don't know if you remember, I had found something called the meme cable, where as you charge your phone, it saved it to a card that was built into the cable.
Right.
But then you had to get the hardware, the software to unload it from the cable. So this is easier. It's on a micro SD card. You can just plug anything into it and read it directly off the little cube. Or you can take the micro SD card out and put it in a converter and put it directly into your computer. So it's very convenient. The new price, once those 7 are gone, it's going to be $39. Okay, so there are a few of the $29 ones left, and then it'll move up to $39.
Oh, there's only 3 left, and now there's only 2 left because I just bought one.
I bought one. Okay. I'm glad you got in at $29.
Wow, they're going fast. But
yeah, I think it's a good idea, especially for people who don't know from cloud storage, and they want to know where their stuff is, and there it is on the
quite
queue.
how it works. I mean, does this work with an iPhone or only with Android?
Both, iPhone and Android.
Wow, I feel like they're doing something tricky.
I
mean, I don't even know how you would do this on an iPhone. Does the iPhone let you do this?
It says, I asked them, I said, iPhone. They said, iPhone, Android, no problem. We do both.
Huh. Well, I bought it, so.
Okay.
and you even get little confetti on Kickstarter when you buy something.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, which is good because a lot of the things I've bought on Kickstarter, the confetti was the only thing I got. Yeah. At least you get something.
Did you get that laptop that was like $3,000? And did you wait 3 years?
Don't even, please.
Okay, all right.
I'm still waiting for the unicorn that farts rainbows. I don't know when I'm going to get that. I may never get that.
Yeah, they may just send you the gas part of it.
It's an important thing to remember when you buy stuff on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, which is kind of the same, that they even say this. We're not a store. You're taking a risk. You're putting money up to back a product that may never make it to market. In this case, because Sanho, which is the company behind this company, I think it's a pretty safe bet. As you say, this is not their first rodeo, so to speak.
No.
And this looks like a really useful thing.
Yeah, and also at CE Week, they had all the gadgets from the past Kickstarter things, and the stuff is nicely built. I'm sure they had the one that you have.
Yeah, I love my Hyper. It's what I can't remember what it's called, HyperX or HyperDrive, but I love it. It's really useful if you have an iPad. It's a must-have. But this, I don't understand how this works because I don't think Apple really encourages people to. I don't know how you plug in. I mean,
their cable.
They're doing something magical that I don't understand. Because Apple, you can't just plug in a USB drive to your iPhone and have it copy stuff off. It just won't work. So Well,
you're still using your own Apple charge cable, but you're plugging that charge cable into.
No, I understand.
Okay.
Normally, you have to plug it into a computer that's running iTunes, and iTunes backs it up. So I don't know what it's doing.
Do not know.
Yeah, very clever.
Yeah, at least you're only out $29 if I misdirected you.
I
misdirected you, I'll buy it from you.
I trust these guys. They've never steered me wrong. They make excellent gear. Okay. And so does Dick. At Giz, do you make anything besides jokes?
No, hardly even money. No, I just do things for fun.
Yeah, well, then we better support Dick by going to his website, gizwiz.biz, gizwiz.biz. If you want to see the Sanho Hypercube, click the GizWiz Visits the Tech Guy button. But right above it, there's a Giz What the Heck Is It contest button, and that is a chance to win an autographed copy of Mad Magazine from this guy right here. All you have to do is identify a close-up of a gadget or a gizmo. It's not easy, but that's okay because, frankly, he's happy to give you an autographed copy of Mad Magazine for a clever wrong answer.
Yep.
Gizwiz.biz. Don't forget the fabulous GizWiz podcast every week at gizwiz.tv. If you want more Dickie D, that's the place to get it. Okay, Richard.
Thank you, sir. And you'll have more of me next week.
More of you next week?
Yeah.
Incredible. I look forward to seeing you then. Take care.
Okay, buddy.
Bye,
Take
Dickie.
care.
Thank you, Heather Hammond, for briefly slumming with us on the show today. The great Heather Hammond. Oh, they turned the lights on. I'm sorry. Were you sleeping? I didn't mean to wake you up. What? Hello? It was dark in the studio. Really nice to see you again. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. Take care. You can catch Heather in San Francisco radio. I won't say the names of the stations because they're not ours. But you'll hear her lovely voice there. Thank you, Heather. Thanks also to Big Pee-wee, our musical director, Damien. He does such a good job playing the music for us and pushing the buttons. And heck, have you even had to use the swear filter even once? Never. It's because you're a great audience, and we thank you so much for being here. I couldn't do the show without you. I hope you'll come back next time. In the meantime, have a great Geek Week. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. Well, that's it for the Tech Guy Show for today. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, TWIT, T-W-I-T. It stands for This Week in Tech, and you'll find it at twit.tv, including the podcasts for this show. We talk about Windows on Windows Weekly, Macintosh on Mac Break Weekly, iPads, iPhones, Apple Watches on iOS Today, security on Security Now. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And, of course, the big show every Sunday afternoon, This Week in Tech. You'll find it all at twit.tv. And I'll be back next week with another great Tech Guys show. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.